is, because every FD in this business wants to know what their monthly costs are and what their hits are and what their 3-year forward budget needs to be. That's great, but do you know how your cloud is costed? Right? Do you have a clear understanding of what your cost model is going to be? We've now got clouds out there that measure on virtual CPU, on memory, on disk, on I/O, on MIPS, if anybody remembers good old mainframe days again. You know, we've got 100 different measures. How many of your IT teams actually know how many transactions a database does in a set period of time? Maybe, maybe not. These are the different numbers that we're going to be measuring on. And if cloud is going to give you this flexibility that we all want, we've got to be able to look to the FD and look to the accounting team, and we've got to be able to say to them, how do we change the finance model to cope with it? And I would challenge that most FDs still would rather have a set number that they know is 1,000 every month than a number that is 300 this month and 800 next month and 1,200 the month after. And we have to help that understanding, because if we don't help that understanding, I call it the average, max and peak. Understanding your average use, understanding what you realistically maximum need at any point, and understanding where your peak might go. But if we don't have that understanding, we're not going to be helping our accounting departments be able to get into this technology. And they need to, because it is going to give people an edge. Hey, look, bullet points. I bet you didn't think you'd see any of that. Business processes. We've all got business processes, and bizarrely, of all the people that I work with, the ones who seem to have the best business processes that are going to go straight into the cloud are the government. Right? Because the government already have very strict approvals regimes in place. You know, public sector spending, there is an approval regime. When you get an environment that you can just spin up a new server, where's your approval regime? Who's managing that server? Who's looking after it? Who's responsible for the application on it? Who's responsible for paying it? Where has the decision come from for paying it? So we still need to keep these approval systems in. We need accounting. I mentioned that. I'm not going to talk about that again. We need the sizing process. What do we need in the cloud? And we need to test that. We can't go into the cloud and go, right, I know it works on a 2 CPU, 16 gig, this disk, so I'll buy that in the cloud and hope it works. So we need to do sizing exercises and make sure they work. And we need to do, not going to surprise you that I'm going to say this, we need to do testing. And not just testing as in testing the live systems, testing as in testing the DR systems. An enormous amount of our time is spent helping customers twice a year check that if everything goes poof for them, then they can recover. You still need to do that. You can't cover your eyes. If you've off-sited, if you've given your environment into the cloud, you need to have a reassuring way to know that your cloud provider can provide DR if they go poof. Because we've seen it. We've seen some massive providers and we've seen some massive data centers just go poof. So let's make sure that we've thought about that. Where is it located? How many of you, I'm going to show of hands, how many of you are already doing something in the cloud? Yeah, I thought so, that's great. How many of you are absolutely sure of where that data center is located, that your data is in? Right, much fewer hands. How many of you have done the same kind of a process and analysis of the data center to be comfortable that that data center is secure, is located in the right place, is within the right legislative area? Yeah, it's about the same number of who are comfortable. We put stuff into the cloud. We look at the big providers, they're starting to host stuff in the UK because they've suddenly realized it's no good putting stuff in the US if it needs to come under UK legislative body. Right. It's no good putting stuff in the UK if it needs a wider EU, then you've got a bit more flexibility. We've looked at these big providers who are doing this. We've looked at some of the smaller providers who are going, yeah, we're providing a cloud, but what they are is, credit to them, they're doing a fantastic job, but they're HP. You remember HP day one? Garage in, what was it, San Jose, I think it was? You know, we've got to know where our cloud is being run out of, because we are enterprise, and it is us that will come under inspection if we let everything down. If we've farmed everything out, let's make sure we farmed it out to somebody who knows what they're doing. More goldfish. So I just want to talk about, again, security, granularity of data. At the moment, I'm not going to touch too much on this because I know we've got speakers later on talking about this, but at the moment we tend to take a broad brushstroke approach to data. We tend to look at data and go, that stuff needs this level of compliance. Okay, well, we'll provide that across our estate and then we're fine. Trying to do that in the cloud is going to be expensive because you're going to end up having to size everything for your strictest compliance of data. You remember I said government are best placed for this. Government, when I look at public sector stuff that comes to us, they talk about confidential and restricted. They've already itemized all their data as to how secure it needs to be. Banks do that as well. We all need to be doing that. We all need to be absolutely sure that we know how secure our data needs to be in order to decide which provider it needs to go into. And I said which provider, and my marketing guy here might actually tackle me down to the floor for saying this, but let's not believe that one provider is going to do absolutely everything for us, because certainly, and for the near future, we're going to be looking at a landscape where multiple providers are using multiple things. How many people are already using Google for email, but are using Salesforce for customer relationship management? They're using different providers. It's still going to be like that. So exit strategies. I've talked about getting into the cloud, and I've asked a lot of questions, and that avoids me having to give too many answers. Exit strategies are important. When I have a bank host stuff at me, and they've got absolutely vital customer data on their disks, one of the requirements is a minimum of a 5x secure wipe, often 5x secure wipe and a destruction of the disks that data was held on. It's cool when that's the bank. It's when it's their disk, it's great fun. I tell you, taking the disks apart, smashing them, great fun. But that's cool when it's a bank systems, that's dedicated. If you leave a cloud provider, think about what your business accepts as data wipe. Because if data wipe isn't sufficient, you're either not going to get that data wipe from a cloud provider, or they will come to you and say to you, right, well, if you want us to smash the disk, that's an entire set of arrays that we have to smash. Happy to do it, that's going to be an expensive game. So think about what your exit strategies are for secure removal of data, and think about what your exit strategies are for cleaning up afterwards. So what I mean by cleaning up afterwards, hybrid model we talked about. If I come out the cloud, but I've built a hybrid model with some local hosted systems as well that couldn't go in the cloud, iSeries, HP UX that didn't fit, whatever, how do I remove them? How do I bring them out securely? If I've got my data backup and compliance sorted, but let's say it's all on net backup and your new provider is on TSM, how are you going to maintain your compliance if you can't? You might be able to get the tapes, but how are you going to maintain your compliance if you can't read that data? Is your business going to go through a transition process where it transitions 7 years or 3 years worth of data onto a new provider? None of these should be technical barriers. Nothing I'm talking about really is a technical barrier to going into the cloud, but all of these are business realities about going into the cloud. It should not make you any less keen to go in, because there are a whole raft of benefits from cloud services that you are not able to leverage at the moment. But it should make you think, it should make you do the same business analysis that you always do. I lost them all now. I have 4 points as my summary. It's not doom and gloom. Please don't take that from this. The cloud is something that will give your businesses leverage that you haven't had before, and it will give you advantages that you haven't had before. But it's also not a panacea. Do the business analysis, that you have to do for the cloud, just like you would if it was hosting, just like you would if it was DR, just like you would if it was internal systems. That's number one. Number two, look closely at hybrid models. Even if today you don't need it, be aware and cognizant of what hybrid models are possible there. Customer of mine said, it's okay, I'll keep systems that need to be close to me, that's fine. Just factor in the costs of the 100 meg or gig les links that you need to do that, and that you can get diverse links. Not a problem, not a technical challenge, but be cognizant of what you've got to do. Be aware of licensing. Right? We're all headlong rushing into the cloud. There are certain software companies out there who are quite happily letting everybody rush into the cloud and then slapping them with licensing issues, or are saying, I'm sorry, this software is not supported in the cloud. We'll do our best, but if there's a problem, you have to transition to a physical platform for us to help you. So look at your software agreements. Don't just put everything in the cloud because it works in the cloud. Make sure that your software is supported in the cloud as well, and that your licensing isn't bad for you. And my last corny statement, because I did try and catch up. I know I've rushed, but we were being asked to try and catch up a little time. My last corny statement is, don't let the cloud cloud your judgment. Use the same enterprise business skills you've got today that you use today in every business decision you make to make those same decisions within the cloud. It is going to help your business move forwards in a way that you've not had yet. It's going to give you access to enterprise level technology that you probably haven't been able to afford or able to leverage properly up until now. It's going to offload a bunch of the duller IT operations processes off you so that your IT department can concentrate on the valuable stuff. But don't let it cloud your judgment. Make the same judgment calls you would in everything else, because otherwise it'll come back to bite you. That's me done. 27.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes for questions. Anybody got any questions before I pass on to the next person?
Can you comment about the application of cloud government? Because I think one of the factors is the operation of people in the department.
Okay, so the question here is, can I comment about government's approach to cloud, especially with the different departments that tend to all work very separately in government. There's a G-Cloud cooperation team going on at the moment that is very much, to put it politely, kicking the arse of the government and saying, you guys need to take notice of this as well. You guys need to start agreeing compliance issues, starting to drive some of the cloud compliance standards. You guys start needing to agree how we're going to work together on this. At the moment, G-Cloud to me looks very much like building a government-based cloud. So that to me is very much a private cloud. But I think that what we'll see is as compliance gets pushed forwards and as we start understanding better what can go in and what can go out, we're starting to see a lot of let's say, I think that's called consumer-based, so government consumers, sort of knowledge, information that the average person in the street wants. We're starting to see a lot of that being marked as not restricted and then being able to be pushed out to the cloud. So it's really, the government are starting to push working together, but it is going to be a while because they've got all the classifications that would work really well, but they've got all of these restrictions still that say, but we want to do it ourselves, and every department in the government is still fighting for its own resources, because we all know once you let go of those resources in government, you don't get them back. Any other questions? Mm-hmm.